The character of Droopy McCool only appears briefly in Return of the Jedi, seemingly overshadowed by his flashier bandmates Max Rebo and Cy Snoodles. Of course, this only got worse with the special edition of the film. There were so many new characters added that it's difficult to see him at all. But we won't be talking about that today. Like many of the aliens in Jabba's palace, the initial design for Droopy came in the form of a maquette, or a small statue. Droopy's maquette, which you can see here, was sculpted by Wesley Seeds, who worked as a model maker for ILM. They needed a huge amount of aliens for the Jabba's palace scenes, so they basically asked everyone on staff to create maquettes for various alien designs that George Lucas would then select from, picking and choosing the parts that he liked best. I think in many cases they didn't even necessarily have a specific role in mind when they made the design, so Cy Snoodles here wasn't created with the idea of her being the lead singer in the band necessarily, but they then retroactively assigned them those roles later on when Lucas decided he liked them. There are a couple of interesting things about these maquettes. The first is just that they're the first iteration of the characters that we came to know and love in the film, and so I just find that fascinating. But the other thing is that for the most part, they still exist in the Lucasfilm archives. They're still there and in relatively decent condition, most of them. And that means that Regal Robot was able to go there and scan them for the purposes of making very precise replicas of them. And that's what we're going to be talking about today with regard to Droopy McCool's statue. But before we look at Regal Robot's replica, let's take a closer look at the original maquette. As you can see, Droopy is actually pretty recognizable compared to what we saw in the final film. He's got 2 toes on his feet and 3 fingers on his hands. He's got a prominent nose and no visible eyes. He's also not wearing any clothes, which is one difference from the prototype and the final version, which was wearing some modest shorts. Unfortunately, Mr. Seeds passed away some years ago, and as far as I'm aware, he didn't really comment on his inspiration for sculpting Droopy McCool, so we can really only speculate. I will say that when I first saw this maquette, I was really reminded of a Buddha statue, but that could just be a coincidence. He does also bear quite a resemblance to Droopy Dog, the cartoon character, which could be how he got his name, but again, I'm not entirely sure. Regal Robot actually sent one of these to me to review for you, so let's go ahead and look at the actual replica. So Droopy comes in kind of the standard archive collection black box with a sticker on it. Says Droopy McCool Concept Maquette Replica Signature Edition. Now this, I should mention, some of the ones that they've released in the past have had signature editions and numbered editions. The signature editions coming, of course, with a signed plaque from someone who had to do with the creation of the character or the maquette. In this case, there's only going to be the signature edition, so once that's gone, that's it. Inside the box, we get an envelope here with a little card in it that we've been getting with each of these releases. It just says Archive Collection. It's got just some general information about the Archive Collection, and then it's kind of a, certificate of authenticity, I guess you'd say, signed by Tom Spina, the founder of Regal Robot. You'll notice it says Signature Edition 200 pieces. That's quite low in terms of edition size, so I would expect this to sell out fairly quickly. And here we have the actual Droopy McCool maquette itself. You can see he's kind of seated on a base that is the traditional black wooden base that they use for the Archive series. And he's just kind of relaxing here, it looks like. He's got one hand on his knee and the other one on the other knee, essentially. I've always kind of wondered, I've seen this, of course, before. This hand here kind of seems to be open, as if they thought maybe he would be holding something here. But as far as I'm aware, that was not part of the actual maquette, anyway. We look around the back. Not a whole lot going on there, but you can see his little droopy derriere there. To look at the paint briefly, I think they did a great job overall. This is a fairly monochromatic piece, so it's basically just one color, but they've added a lot of nice shading and things, presumably, to match what was on the original maquette, but it looks really quite good. There's some subtle pink shades here around his mouth and nose. There's shading in the wrinkles and so forth, and around his ears. The only thing I would say is, looking at the pictures that I have of the original maquette, it looked like the nose was maybe darker and there was less contrast between the nostrils and the nose part, but considering they have actual hands-on access to the original maquettes, I think I'll give them a pass on that. Now, I thought it might be interesting to compare this with the vintage Kenner figure, so we've got that here. And as you can see, we've got the same basic anatomy here, the two toed feet, 3 fingers, one functioning as a thumb. He's got the same little nose. Now you can't really see on the maquette much of his mouth. He's got just a little slit for a mouth there, but on the actual vintage figure it's open so that you can sort of put his flute in there. But yeah, I mean, this is very similar. He's got the eyes and so forth. Now, one, of course, major difference is that this figure and the actual costume in the movie is wearing pants. But the original maquette is just hanging out there, totally free and easy, which I think is kind of interesting. Might be also good to compare this to the Max Rebo Maquette, just in terms of size and whatnot. So there we are. You can see the bases are a bit different, actually. Let me get this in frame. So Max Rebo is on a more rectangular base. It's a bit lower. And also the base on Droopy here has more of a bevel on the corners here, which is, at least the top corners, which is interesting, and a little bit of a different design. So these are beveled a little bit, but they're a bit more of a sharp corner. But I think, just in terms of size, that these two actually go together pretty well in a display. That's not guaranteed with these maquettes, because they weren't designed to be in a certain scale or anything, really. They were just intended to be used on their own as character references, so that's kind of a nice coincidence. I think if they ever do a Size Snoodles maquette, which will be, you know, it's not a guarantee because it's quite a bit of a different design and might be technically challenging to pull off, but if they do that, it's going to be, I think, quite a bit different in scale from these, so just something to keep in mind. Now, as I mentioned, this is the signature edition, and that means that it comes with a signed plaque, but in every other case that I am aware of, the maquettes have come with plaques signed by the actual sculptor who created them originally. In this case, because the sculptor of Droopy McCool, Wesley Seeds, is no longer with us, that was obviously not an option. But they did find someone who was very intimately connected to all of the creature shop and the production of these aliens during Return of the Jedi, and that is Jean Lauren. Now, she was involved in adding skins to the actual suits that people would wear, creating sort of the internal frameworks and things to strap them to people's bodies. She was involved with Droopy, of course, Amanaman, Bubo, the Gamorrean guards. Here she is dressed as a Gamorrean, although I don't think she actually played one on screen. Here she is signing the plaques for this piece. And here is the actual plaque, just like the other ones in the series. And each one will be numbered out of 200. So that's a really cool addition to an already cool piece, in my opinion. If you're watching this on the day I released it, which is the 10th of October, this will be available already to order on the Regal Robot website. It goes for $299. And yeah, I mean, I would suggest not sleeping on it if you're interested in this, especially if you already have the Max Rebo Maquette. This would be an awesome companion to that. And that's about it for today. Thank you very much for watching, and have a droopy day. This video was brought to you with the help of my Patreon supporters, including these Palace VIPs, Angelica Brady, and Jesper Murtu. Thank you all so much for your support. And if you'd like to know how you can support the channel for as little as $1 a month, you can check the link in the video description.